Namaste and welcome to the curtain raiser for Raisina Dialogue 2021. This is Abhinav Prakash. Raisina Dialogue is India's flagship conference on geopolitics and geoeconomics. And today I'm joined by the person, the driving force behind it since the very beginning, the president of the ORF, Samir Sharan. Welcome, Samir.
Thank you for having me, Abhinav.
So, Samir, this year's Raisina Dialogue is unique. This is for the first time we will have a completely digital conference. So, my question to you is that what is the broader context in which this is happening? This is happening after last year when we saw once in a century pandemic, which changed the life as we knew it, which caused social flux, political change, and geopolitical realignment. So, what is the broader context in which we are having this dialogue?
I think, Abhinav, you've captured it quite well. For me, personally, and for us as a collective who are organizing this conference, I think the past 1 year has put forward a number of questions. Very few answers, but certainly a large number of questions. The first question, of course, has to be around this whole mantra of global integration, globalization itself, the global collective, common humanity, a common agenda, one planet. Everything that we used to invoke in different languages around the world has come to naught. When the pandemic struck, it was each person for themselves, each nation looking after its own. You saw a competitive madness from the hijacking of shipments of masks, from the frenzy and the competition around vaccines, for somehow acquiring access capacity when it came to ventilators and certain medicines. We saw a Darwin's world. We saw the rich and the powerful prevail. We saw the rich and the powerful look after themselves. We did not see that globalization as a common humanity project that would serve everyone equally, equitably at least. I'm not someone who believes in socialism, but I'm certainly someone who believes in the word equitable. And I think we did not see a level playing field. We did not see a fair arrangement. And we saw that the global project was limping. So that's one big area we are investigating over the course of the next 3 days. That what happens to the global project, what happens to globalization, what is a new form of integration that may happen, which are the countries that are likely to be driving this new reformed state of affairs, and we certainly explored this. We also saw a spread of another endemic, which was the digital viruses. We saw from fake news to deep fakes to polarization online to using the digital means to mobilize and destabilize governments and establishments around the world. We saw the digital acquire a far more menacing overtone for many societies, many countries, many people. We have generally associated technology and innovation as being good outcomes of our last many decades of endeavors. We saw them as providing means of connecting, saw them as providing jobs, saw them as providing value and valuations. We did not see the darker side like we saw during the pandemic itself. And I think that's another big area of exploration. How do we manage, regulate, work with big tech? How do we protect individual agency and rights? How do we protect democracy itself from the frontal attack that has been launched against it using technology as a means? And over-regulation is not an answer. And therefore, a dialogue has to look at the far greater spectrum of choices, options that many of us will have to deploy to ensure that we can have safe digital spheres that are productive, value creative, create employment, and yet are not becoming dark spaces and unsafe spaces. So that's the second area. And of course, Abhinav, one of the most important objectives as we get over the pandemic has to restart the economy, has to grow back quicker, faster, better. There is a big debate on net zero. There is a big debate on building green. There is a debate on how do you ensure that sustainable development goals of 2030 are achieved. And we have to factor all of this as we restart our world in 2022, hopefully. And that is, again, big exploration area as far as this particular dialogue is concerned. And finally, I think we have to, as a human collective, discover ways to hold bad actors to account. I think we have given free passes for too long, whether it was terror, whether it is the pandemic, whether it is the capture of multilateral institutions, whether it is multiple negative activities that have happened over the last couple of decades, we have looked the other way. I think if we have to work as one community and one world, we will have to hold bad actors to account, whether they are big tech or big nations. They have to be answerable to a community. And we have to devise ways. Can the UN serve that purpose? Or is it time to reform the UN? Is reform enough? Or do we really need to rebuild it and restructure it and recreate it? And what is the future of multilateralism is again something that we are really engaged in.
Yes, Samir, and that's a very interesting point, that we have to think about the existing institutions in the world, which were built after the Second World War, which reflected the power dynamics of that era. But this pandemic has basically accelerated the trends in the shift in the global power. So you see the more shift of the power is happening towards the Indo-Pacific. Countries like China, India, which are now becoming economic powerhouse and slowly military power as well. How will this Raisina 2021 reflects this changed power dynamic in the world?
Well, I can give you a sneak peek. We are actually going to have military leaders from Europe joining us on panels that are discussing the future of the Indo-Pacific. So Europe in the Indo-Pacific is one of the themes of this conference, the sub-themes of this conference, and we are hoping to see how European powers will need to engage or should engage, or what is the contribution they can make in ensuring stability and peace in the waters of the Indo-Pacific, in the geography that is going to become, as you rightly point out, the most important one in the days ahead. We are also, for the first time, going to speak to the Secretary General of NATO. You know, people keep talking about the Asian NATO. Well, we are talking to the real NATO, and we are asking the real NATO what it means to be an actor in the age which is going to be defined by what's happening in the Indo-Pacific, as you point out. And we're going to have that conversation as well. We have key ministers from Europe who are going to be participating and speaking in this particular edition of the dialogue. So I truly believe that recognizing the centrality of the Indo-Pacific, recognizing that there are new groupings emerging, the Raisina dialogue is nimble enough to capture these new conversations that are needed if we need to take this moment forward. And I think we are doing it sufficiently in this particular edition. We are starting on Tuesday. Abhinav, please do follow us and follow us on our website, follow us on all our social media handles. And of course, if you register, you can log in and pose your questions on our Bespoke platform as well. So we are going completely digital across multiple formats so that anyone can view it for later, anyone can view it online, people can post ideas and questions. And we are also planning to give the best ideas and questions, some Raisina mementos from this very special year, because we are not being able to do it in person. We must mark this occasion. We must remember, we must never forget that we were brought to a situation where we could not meet each other. This year must change the way we look at the future. I don't think we should take this lightly. We've been brought to a place as humankind, and we must make sure that it remains etched in our memory, and we must make this the moment that makes us determined that this will not happen again. And I think that must drive us in the next decade.
Absolutely, Samir. And definitely the post-pandemic world is not or will not be same as the pre-pandemic world. But Raisina dialogue so far has been very Western heavy. We have lots of representation from the Europe and the Western countries. But what about African countries? What about Latin America? Will we see more engagement with the think tanks, with the thinkers, military leaders, political leaders from this continent?
So, Abhinav, this year we are introducing two special panels. One is on Latin America. We will have a foreign minister from there joining us on a conversation on the future of that particular geography, what's happening there, what are the big power politics unfolding, what is the economic prognosis for that particular continent. And we have at least, say, a handful of panels where we have African leadership present, speaking up, speaking out on key SDG challenges, on climate questions, on gender issues, but we also have a dedicated Africa means business panel, where we are focusing purely on the continent as a growth continent. I think the narrative that that continent is about development and development partnerships is the last century. I think Africa is a dynamic, young geography that is our future. And Raisina has to adjust to that. We have made a significant move towards that. This year, Raisina Dialogue will be inaugurated by a head of state, head of government from that continent. And this is giving due recognition to a geography that is going to be most important for both our peoples in the days ahead.
Definitely, that's very interesting to know, Samir. But let's say, what was the vision behind the Raisina Dialogue when it started? You have been associated with it since the very beginning. And many people have alleged that the Raisina Dialogue is just the extension of the foreign policy of the Modi government. So what was the core vision when it was conceptualized, when it was started? How do you rate it?
I will ignore the second part of your question, because hopefully by responding to the first part, people may begin to realize its origins and its purpose. And therefore, the second part does not necessarily correspond to that vision through which it was birthed. Very few people know this. Abhinav, I've never spoken about it other than in some small groups at work, in office. In 2012, I went to the Joint Secretary of Economic Relations at that time and suggested to him that this Shangri-La Dialogue has become the hub for discussing global politics and global economic issues in Asia. And we see some of the finest minds, best brains, mightiest leaders descend in that arena and discuss the future of the world. For a country of our size, we need to be an idea center. We need to be an ideational capital of the world, where people come and actually converge and share thoughts and share their perspectives, share their differences, arrive at common pathways based on debate and divergence. And he was quite excited. And I remember Secretary, I think Ms. Sujata Mehta, who latched on to this idea. And she said, why don't you do something for the Indian Ocean countries and the observer countries for the Indian Ocean Rim Association? And I think it's around 2013, if I recall correctly. I may be wrong by a few months, but around that time, we hosted our first dialogue, first major international conference in 2012-13 with Secretary ER in Cochin. And I think we brought together close to 28 countries in Cochin at that point of time to discuss the future of what is today called the Indo-Pacific. At that time, it was not even imagined as that, other than in an academic paper. And we brought these countries together to actually discuss many of what has happened thereafter, much of what has transpired thereafter. That is the origin of this big conference. Then we went into an election year. Nothing happened in 2014. But in 2015, the new foreign secretary at that time called a few of us, a number of institutions, and they wanted to carry forward some of the work from the past, some new ideas, some new platforms. And we were asked that if we could make this more global, bigger, more ambitious. And that was my original plan. My original idea was to create a global conference. ORF always wanted to build this international ideas arena in India, located out of India. It does not belong to India, belongs to everyone. Everyone can come and discuss their issues, but become a center where people travel so that we become part of the global community, the thinkers community, the diplomats community, the generals community. We become part of their calendars, and they come and they have to engage with us. And in 2015, October or September, we decided that we would drop the Indian Ocean Dialogue that we had hosted in Cochin, create a Raisina Dialogue, brand new, fresh property with more ambition, more pace, and grander scale. And in 2016 March, we hosted our first dialogue under the late Srimati Sushma Swaraj, She was the one who supported this dialogue at that time. And of course, the Foreign Secretary, Dr. Jaishankar, who was at that time heading the Foreign Ministry under the minister. And we hosted our first dialogue in 2016. And since then, we took momentum, gained reputation, and have generally seen a favorable response for two reasons. One, if you were to look at our agenda that will be up very soon, or if you were to go to our archives and look at our agenda over the past 5 years, you would find that the percentage of Indian conversations is rather limited in that dialogue. It's a very rich dialogue which has very few Indian issues that are discussed. We give them a flavor of India. People are traveling to Delhi. People come and sit in your country for 3 days. So we give them a glimpse of what are the development challenges we are facing and solving, what are the political questions we are trying to respond to. We give people a flavor, but these are global conversations. They're about Latin America. They're about parts of Europe. They're about Eastern Europe. They're about Russia. They're about East Asia. Our conversations are global, which have global experts, and in many of the panels, you will not even find an Indian speaker. So first of all, our conference is not an Indian conference. It is a conference out of India. It is a conference, global conference located in India. Of course, as hosts, MEA and ORF contribute to the crafting of these discussions. Of course, we have some issues which are important to the country that are part of the agenda. But the largest segment of this conversation is global by dimension, global by texture, global by participation. And that has allowed this to be adopted by many. We have folks actually, like, for example, we've been working with the European, with the EU External Action Service. And they have made it a point to have the EU-India think tank twinning initiative as a Raisina conference. And it's really about think tanks in Europe talking to think tanks in India. We have very little to do with it, but we are promoting such initiatives. We are similarly promoting certain other programs where the whole idea was to build a thinkers community. Since people are coming here, let them also participate in other projects that are happening in the country. Eventually, the plan is that this whole Raisina week should allow multiple institutions around India and Delhi and Bombay and other centers to benefit from this large influx of 700-800 folks who fly down each year to Delhi for this week, and to use them in their individual centers, build their individual partnerships, create their own programs, and carry a discrete, separate, private research agenda with each of them. So, are we part of an Indian offering? Yes. Are we the voice of anyone? Of course, we are the voice of the community that sits and speaks from our diocese, which are many in numbers, which are many in count. And to be fair, of course, the ambition and the scale that this project has is because of this government's determination to make it world class and to create a global thought arena. So you have to give them credit for what it is, but it is certainly not a place where they come and make public policy announcements or political announcements. I think they have a far bigger network to do that. We are rather modest in our reach and in our in the number of people who really engage with foreign policy, etc.
Well, you are being modest, Sami, but if it is not aligned with India's, let's say, broader policy, then why don't we have representation from Taiwan, or why we don't have much people coming from Pakistan in the conference?
I disagree with the first point. I think we are very much aligned with India's broader policy objectives. And here, India is much bigger than a government or a think tank or a institution. I think we are part of the Indian offering as India in a much broader term. So I'm sorry, we are not disaligned we are completely aligned with India. I think that's number one. And number two, of course, we have participation from Taiwan every year. And even this year, despite it being digital, we will have a speaker or two joining us because the program is much smaller. We won't have the same number of folks coming in digitally, but we will have voices from Taiwan speaking at this forum as well. And by the way, let me also tell you that since the very beginning, we've had multi-party voices, even from within India. So we've had the Congress Party and some of its best minds on foreign policy speak at this forum each year. We've had regional parties come in from Bombay, from Delhi, from Uttar Pradesh, from Karnataka. Our idea is to actually offer this platform to the entire Indian thinking landscape. So this is an Indian offering. You've got it right. And we do align with the larger Indian objective of building bridges for the nation.
Yes, but you know, there is also Raisina Young Fellows program, which is part of the wider Asian Forum on Global Governance. This year, because it's a completely online platform, so how you are going about it? Because it's like it used to be people coming together, young people from across the world, staying together for a week and discussing the global issues. How that is happening this year?
It's not happening, Abhinav. We took a call that the Young Leaders Program requires a degree of physical contact, and you know, it is the camaraderie of being together for 10 days, traveling the same journey that leads to friendships. You've been a part of the Young Fellows Program. You're one of our brighter young fellows, so you know that being together has a different texture for that particular program. What we plan to do is that we plan to do 2 programs within 6 months each to make up for the last year. We were able to do the last year program with the Raisina Dialogue. We are going to miss this year, but hopefully if things revert to normal in the next 6 months, we will try and ensure that we can quickly put together 2 batches so that we make up for lost time. And we will give preference to those who were slated to join us this year. So we would like to make sure that we bring them in, even if they have crossed the age limit. So that would be our intention, that we make up for lost time, but we have lost time.
Okay, but my last question to you, Samir, will be about how do you rate the success of the Raisina Dialogue so far? What have been the outcomes, let's say, something which is unique, which has come out of this conference? And also on a lighter note, what have been the controversies surrounding it? If you could share some anecdotes about, you know, what goes on behind the scene, how do you try to reconcile different actors, different speakers who might not be, let's say, good with each other otherwise?
So I will not tell you the unsavory bits about managing Raisina, because I think as a curator of the dialogue, it's my responsibility to ensure that everything works rather smoothly. And although we do have hiccups, and I must confess we've had our share of hiccups in the past few years, but we have generally managed to tide it over. Maybe 1 or 2 issues still linger, and we will continue to deal with it. But I think for me, first of all, I think success is relative. I think we are doing fine. I think for our 6th year, we are doing fine. I don't necessarily think we have reached where we want to be. And I think there's a journey ahead of us. And I think the younger team at ORF is going to take it to its eventual logical destination as the world's most important and most actually informative discussions and conversations arena that will inform global political leadership, business leadership, civil society leadership in the years ahead. I think we are still some time away from that, and we have a lot of hard work to do. And I'm sure that the team and I will continue to do that. But for me, the most interesting part about this arena has been that we, through this particular setting, are engaging far more deeply with many more countries. Let me give you a number. I mean, I know now statistics are just statistics, but last year we had 103 countries, and I'm not talking about embassies in India. I'm talking about 103 countries, folks from 103 countries who flew into India. Now, this is a rare number. How many times do you see this kind of diversity descend in a city anywhere in the world other than New York? Or some other international centers. So for a country like India, if you have at a given time 103 different nationalities descend in a certain zone, I think it is a very, very new feeling. And I think we have to continuously innovate and upgrade the way we engage with them to make the best out of this opportunity of this collective being in one location at the same time. I think that's one really fascinating development around Raisina, about the diversity that it is able to attract. And that is particularly satisfying. The second, of course, is I think our Indian political leadership across party lines, but certainly in the ruling establishment, is the honesty. I have seen such tough questions asked by international visitors to our leaders at the big stage at Raisina, and I've seen a disarming honesty in the responses by them. And I think this kind of vibrant discussion on some of the most contentious issues is what makes this different to the BOW forum or some other forums where you have very curated conversations. I think the spontaneity of debates that takes place in Raisina, I remember General Rawat being asked a tough question on Kashmir. I remember Ram Madhavji being asked a tough question on 370 and the ensuing debates that were happening at that particular point of time. I know of Dr. Jaishankar being posed a very difficult question by one person in the audience, and I saw a degree of openness and direct response that is very special to Raisina. And I think that makes the vibrancy and the spontaneity of discussions that happen in the halls in Raisina, the lack of curation of conversations, the access of the mic to everyone who is present there to question anyone they want to, is what makes this special. I don't want Raisina to become a Hyde Park. But I certainly, our job is not to allow people to go ad hominem and be nasty. But I think it must become a place where people have the confidence to ask tough questions and for people to respond to those tough questions. And I think we are getting there. That's a journey that we have made over the last 6 years. And if we continue down that road, we would certainly be one of the most interesting conversations in the world.
Well, Sameer, Raisina already is one of the most interesting conversation in the world. And as you said, I have been part of it in 2018 as the young fellow, and I've seen how much effort you and your team puts into basically achieving and creating this platform. A wonderful platform you have created, and thank you for that. Okay. So every conversation should come to an end, and we also have to wind up this discussion, Sameer. But before, tomorrow when the Raisina dialogue begins, we will have the big platform and we'll listen to one of the finest minds in the world today. But any closing comments from you, Sameer, regarding the direction which India will take in specifically? Of course, it's not an Indian conference, it's a global conference, but as someone who is based out of Delhi, what direction do you think India is going to take in the geopolitical world? We have seen the recent meeting of the Quad taking place. Does that signify wider geopolitical realignment?
I think Raisina would certainly, in many ways, capture the changes and the moment that we are in. I would highly recommend, Abhinav, that you register and tune in and listen to our Prime Minister, our Foreign Minister, and some of our finest voices sharing their thoughts on the future of this country, the direction it is going to take. I, as the curator, am going to be enjoying those conversations, and I will certainly come back to you with my ideas post that discussion.
Thank you, Sameer. And thank you, audience, for listening to us. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel and also share this curtain raiser episode of the Raisina 2021. Also, do try to register. I know, Sameer, there's limited space, but let me ask my audience also to register for the Raisina Dialogue. Thank you.